More steps towards the one world religion have just taken place on September 14th and 15th, 2022, with Catholicism and Islam pretty much coming together and say, yeah, we worship the same God and we're brothers and sisters, just different paths to a different God. This is all falling under the umbrella of the uniting of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, of course, but not the real Christianity. It's Catholicism that's being united under this one world religion. The big event that took place on September 14th and 15th was at the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, and it concluded on last Thursday. But before I get into that, I'll briefly just touch on and remind people of the Abrahamic family house being built in Abu Dhabi, where it's a religious center for Catholics, Muslims, and Jews to all come together and worship all through the Abrahamic religions there at this one thing. The reason this is important is because 2 Thessalonians 2:4 tells us that the Antichrist will demand the worship of himself and his image from everybody, and anyone who doesn't worship him, these people will die. Actually, they will become martyrs, because the only people who won't worship him will be true believers in Jesus Christ, which is not mentioned by Pope Francis at any of these big meetings. So let me read a little bit from this article about it. The world religions leaders today adopted the Human Fraternity document signed by His Eminence, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar and Chairman of the Muslim Council of Elders, Dr. Ahmed Al-Taib, and His Holiness Pope Francis, their name, not mine, of the Catholic Church in Abu Dhabi in 2019. And this came during the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, which concluded on Thursday. Some highlights from the World Congress of Religions. We note that pluralism in terms of differences in skin color, gender, race, language, and culture are expressions of the wisdom of God in creation. Religious diversity is permitted by God, and therefore any coercion to a particular religion and religious doctrine is unacceptable. So, as you can tell, they're not saying here at these events that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the Messiah, the only way to heaven, because that would contradict Islam and Judaism. So it's uniting. Everybody's giving up the truth here. They're all just coming together to get along, to give up the truth, which is that salvation is found through Jesus Christ alone. Back to the article, it says, we recognize the importance and value of the document of human fraternity for world peace and living together between the Holy See and Al-Azhar al-Sharif. And then they mention 2 different documents that were resolved and signed into place by the UN General Assembly, as well as the Makkah Declaration adopted in Mecca in 2019. And these call for peace, dialogue, mutual understanding, and mutual respect among believers. So it's really the uniting of all these religions under the fact that we need to coexist together. And yes, of course, we need to coexist together. But the problem here is that they're starting to aim it towards we serve the same God. We worship the same God. You know, these Abrahamic religions are just different expressions of God to different people. And that's an absolute lie. The Jewish people are stuck in the old covenant, not accepting the new covenant. Islam is clearly, the Quran was written 600 years after the Bible, and they're clearly ripped off stories Muhammad ripped off and manipulated to create his own religion in the same region from the same stories. I mean, Muhammad even demanded that the original manuscripts for the Quran be destroyed. Why would he demand that? Because to cover it up, obviously. So the one truth is found within the biblical text alone, within the Old and the New Covenant mixed together, the New Covenant, salvation through Jesus Christ alone. So really it was this document of human fraternity. It was signed by the Pope and this Grand Imam and adopted at the 7th Congress of Leaders of the World and Traditional Religions in Kazakhstan. It's the uniting of the world under a one world religion that the Antichrist will be the head of eventually. A glimpse of the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religion. Here's from Vatican News, and I was reading through this article and noticed something interesting, that Congress, the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religion, came to life in 2003 in the wake of the tragic September 11th attacks of the United States and following Pope John Paul II's second Spirit of Assisi meeting in 2002. So here's just another thing that came out of the September 11th attacks. Pretty interesting to note that. Worth noting about this interfaith meeting is that it took place within a pyramid. Kind of strange that that's their building of choice. Also, Pope Francis said that his goal for this meeting was peace and unity, of course. Very similar to what we know in 1 Thessalonians 5:3, peace and security is what they'll be saying, and then sudden destruction comes on them like labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. And that's the whole point, really, of this whole meeting, really. and this whole uniting of these religions together. Not that we shouldn't get along and not that we should be out killing each other or something, but the fact that they're trying to unite everybody under peace and security, that's exactly what the Bible says they'll be doing, because it's dropping the truth that Jesus Christ is the way to salvation, which is the true love and peace that people need to come to realize, and just accepting everybody's false doctrines and false teachings for peace and safety, and that will cause sudden destruction. Pope Francis also said at this meeting that the best way to stop religious extremism is not through following the teachings of Jesus Christ, but actually through political democracy. So just enforcing the fact that what the Antichrist will have, which will be the one world government, one world religion. And again, Pope Francis does not mention the truth that salvation is found through Jesus Christ alone, but in fact says this, and this is from Vatican News on the article called Pope in Kazakhstan Religions Key to Building World Peace and Understanding, in reference to this meeting that took place. It says, in his speech to the Congress, the Pope began by addressing everyone as brothers and sisters in the name of the fraternity that unites us as children of the same heaven. He noted that before the mystery of the infinite that transcends and attracts us, the religions remind us that we are creatures, not omnipotent, journeying towards the same heavenly goal. I mean, out of his own mouth. I mean, the fact that people who are Catholics don't see that this guy's pushing for one world religion is insane. I mean, it's absolutely clear as day that this is what he's pushing for. Saying we're all going to the same heavenly goal. That Muslims who actually have written on the Dome of the Rock building in Jerusalem actually says God has no son. And so they want to unite Catholicism with people who say God has no son, because it's clearly written, clear as day in the Bible, that you have to acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God in order to find salvation through him.